Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Fronteras, a Changing America. I'm Edmundo Resendez. What started as making pillows in his mom's basement turned into a clothes designing passion that ultimately landed Zach Lindsay a spot on Project Runway Jr. Produced by Abigail Anderson, Jaylene Level, and Roberto Mayo, all students at Pleasure Ridge Park High School in Louisville, Kentucky, here is this feature.
Zach Lindsay is working in the same spot where most dreams are made of, in his mom's basement.
I'm from an arts family. My mom's a textile artist and her studio was right off of our kitchen. So we would always see her working, and so one day during the summer I got interested. So she taught me how to sew and I made pillows and had a little company called Power to the Pillows.
Pillows eventually turned into skirts.
So I made a little skirt and it was all cutesy, but it was really ugly. Watching Project Runway actually what motivated me to do something else. But it was just that ambition there before it being turned into a talent.
The Youth Performing Arts School was a perfect fit for Zach. It's a place where he's able to learn and grow as a designer.
And just being surrounded by all of the art and the artists here at the school, and that's why I got my formal training.
We'll probably make it a separate piece that sews on. Do you know what I mean?
While working on DMP on our multiple shows is where I just got my love for designing.
Zach got plugged into Project Runway Jr. through the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising.
I made a video, got a portfolio together, got all my models, and we did some quick photos. And so we sent everything out, and the casting team, I guess they liked it, and so I flew out to New York for an interview, and then I was cast. The whole experience on Project Runway Jr. was very wonderful. It was very great to meet other kids my age who had the same love and passion. I want to have my own fashion house. Well, I actually kind of do already, but I want to make it bigger and international and have my fashion house be the center of my company.
Zach has come a long way from sewing pillows in his mom's basement. He doesn't know what the future will bring, but he hopes to eventually see the runways of Milan and Paris.
Jason Salas is an author, cartoonist, illustrator, graphic designer, and singer-songwriter. Woven throughout his work is a thread of humor. He is the creator of 2 comic strips, Perk at Work and In the Way. His first novel, The Sugar Skull Ghost Thief, was just recently released. He has been featured in Mad Magazine as a writer and cartoonist. He has also written several feature articles for newspapers as well as humor columns. Jason Salas, you could say you're a Renaissance man of the arts, can't you?
You can say it and it'd be true.
Yeah, you a cartoonist, a writer. What transitioned you from being a cartoonist to now being a writer?
As a cartoonist, you're a writer naturally. That's something that some people don't quite grasp initially. But to have something that's funny, just a comic strip, you have to have the writing behind it. So the writing process is always there. Now, as a little kid, most all of us, we would just draw pictures, and I draw goofy pictures.
Yeah, we would all start with scribbles in first day in art class.
Yeah, exactly.
With a crayon.
Mm-hmm. And I found that that was somewhat fun, but I found that with more context, with more layers to what I was drawing, I could make people laugh and things of that nature. After I started doing comic strips, I felt that there was a little bit restraining, that the characters could only be in so many panels, and they were such rich characters to me that I wanted to pull them out, and I started writing some short stories, and then eventually, of course, the novel that I have right now.
Talk to me about being a humorist. There are some challenges that people face in being a humorist, in trying to find the funny bone in people's sense of humor. Finding that sense of humor, there's a fine line when it comes to that.
Yes, exactly. I tell people it's funny because I'll sit and I'll be with people and I say, I'm a humorist, and they say, well, Jason, tell us a joke. And I say,
be funny.
Exactly, and I say, I can't tell a joke. And they ha ha ha, they laugh, and I say, that's the humor of it. Humor is irony. Humor is the real things in life. And yes, you walk a fine line between observation and flat out comedy. But humor is just looking at life, finding something that's interesting, finding something that's weird, turning it around your head and presenting it back to people so that it hits them real deep inside.
Let's talk about the Sugar Skull Ghost Thief.
Yes.
The main character is Perk. Who
Yes.
is Perk?
Perk is the main character from my comic strip, Perk at Work. He is a ho-hum type of guy. He's a straight man, actually. I watched a lot of Andy Griffith to try to get an idea of what a straight man would do in that kind of an environment. So he works in a cafe, and he basically just talks to the regulars or maybe the irregulars that come on in and talk to him about whatever random subject that he has.
What challenges did you face in doing cartoons for so long, doing a comic strip for so long? Because you've written at least 3 books, comic strip books, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What challenges did you face from transitioning from being a cartoonist to being a writer?
That's a great question. That's something that I didn't anticipate when I ventured into the novel. The biggest challenge for me was that I couldn't visually see my mistakes. With this novel, it's 300 pages, and it's all text. So to find the mistakes, I have to go line by line through all the text to find the mistake. When you have images, page after page, you can look and say, oh wait, that's not supposed to go there. Oh, that guy's face looks weird or whatnot. This text doesn't go with this thing. With the novel, it took me hours and hours and hours and hours to go through it over and over again to try to find all the mistakes, and there was plenty of mistakes. I believe this was, I ended up with the 10th draft of this.
You went to 10 drafts.
Yes, now they weren't 10 complete rewrites, but they were 10 drafts, editing, rewrites, and everything like that. So.
Let's talk about the book itself. Tell me about the book.
Okay, the book is, again, Perk. He's a Colorado-based guy, just works in this cafe, just a normal guy. And his roommate finds a VW bus, a 1959 VW bus, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, specifically in Old Mesilla. Roommate can't go get it. He says, just go down there, get the bus, I'll wire you the money, etc. So he comes down here just to get a bus, and he needs a vacation. He says, why not? I'll go to this place. I've never been there. So he comes down here. Little does he know, he lands smack dab into a mystery involving a restaurant in Old Mesilla and the skull. It's a relic, and there's a ghost involved, and there's a girl, and all sorts of craziness. I can't give away too much, of course.
Read all about it, right?
Buy the book, right?
Okay, well let's talk about some of the challenges that Perk faces in coming to New Mexico. What were some of your inspirations around this community?
Of course, Old Mesilla. And much of what happens in the book is in Old Mesilla. It's such a magical place. It's a place where I'll go even when there's no one there and just walk around, and there's a certain feel to it. And it's something that you don't get unless you are actually there. It's something that doesn't come through in pictures or videos or any of that stuff. The rustling through the trees, just the chiming of the music, the smells, Mexican food, all those things that just resonate so deeply with me and resonate with many of us here in Las Cruces and in Mesilla. I wanted to bring an outsider. What does that look like? An outsider coming into this environment and just mixing in with that environment. What does it feel like to him? And as I'm writing that, I'm gaining a lot more appreciation. I gained a lot more appreciation for the region, for what I have, for my hometown.
What did Perk find in Mesilla?
Well, one thing he found was chili rellenos. He never had a chili relleno. Yeah, so he found that the restaurants serve sometimes plates that are about the size of hubcaps, and they'll have 5, 6 different things on there, plus like some beans and rice. And of course,
don't forget the chips and salsa.
All the chips and salsa beforehand, right? So it's a smorgasbord, if you will. I don't know the Spanish word for smorgasbord, but that's what it is.
That's a good question. I don't know what it is either.
I don't know. I know it when I see it. I'll tell you
that. So what did he find in Mesilla when he first came? He found the food. Mm-hmm. What about the characters?
Yeah, he runs into a character named Maya. She's a young woman who basically was tasked to go pick him up and bring him back to the restaurant, which is called Calaveras, and that's her family-owned restaurant.
Calaveras.
Yes, Calaveras. I don't speak Spanish as well as you do. However, he finds that, and he comes and he sees that, and there's a part in the book where they have a skull with flowers around it, and he thinks, first off, he's like, wow, the Grateful Dead. And she's like, what do you mean the Grateful Dead? It's like Dias de los Muertos. I guess they're a Grateful Dead, right? Uh-huh. And there's just this cultural shift that one sees one thing, the other sees another thing. And so he finds that there's a whole world that he didn't know, the Dios de los Muertos. And just as an aside to that, one of the weird things that I found out is the people who have bought my book, because they know me, and they read it, they tell me that they had never heard of what a sugar skull was. They didn't know what it was.
The sugar skulls are new to me. I knew what Dia de los Muertos was until I went to Old Mesilla on the Dia de los Muertos weekend, and I saw all these sugar skulls. I'm like, what's this about?
Yeah, it's amazing. More than a couple people have told me, they said, I didn't know what it was, I read your book, and now I see them everywhere. It's kind of an odd thing, but I think that that's neat because it's tapping into what people really care about, I believe.
What are sugar skulls?
The sugar skulls are, of course, I don't want to say a memento, but it's part of the Dios de los Muertos tradition. They can be actual sugar skulls, meaning that people make little candy skulls out of sugar, of course. I don't know.
It's an art form.
Oh, yeah. All parts of it are art form. That's the neat thing about the sugar skull that I'm finding out, is that there is no one sugar skull, right? It is what you want it to be. It's a painted skull. So like I said, they have the sugar ones, and some are larger clay replicas is what they originally are. But you see stickers, you see people making, using them for t-shirts, using them in their advertisements, using them for all sorts of things. It's way out there, but it's really neat to look. Because you can look at some comic characters, like pull one out of the newspaper, and then you see it on a sticker and you say, well, that's supposed to be that character, but they made this changes or something like that. With a sugar skull, it is whatever you want it to be. You can mix it up, you can change it up, and people are having a lot of fun with it.
Prior to writing this book, what was Dia de los Muertos for you? I mean, how did you first get involved with it, and how did that influence your writing?
It has always been, of course, living here in Las Cruces, it's been part of this culture. I would just say I wasn't associated with it. I had never gone to an actual Dios de los Muertos celebration, even though they have one every year. I hadn't gone. I just had never been to one, but of course I knew about it.
We kind of take it for granted that it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been living here going on 14 years, and I've only gone once. And yet I know it comes up every year, and every year I look forward to it, but I never get a chance to go out there and really just be part of it.
Yeah. And I have, you've been there once, and that's one more than I've even gone. And I wrote a book about it. Not necessarily about Dios de los Muertos, but still, yeah, you're right. We do take it for granted. It's kind of like going back to the Mexican food. Sometimes we could take that for granted that we have it there. It's like, well, maybe I'll go have some, or maybe I'll eat something else. And when you leave, like I've moved a couple times far away from Las Cruces, you don't have that option. And then they don't have festivals like Dios de los Muertos. So it really makes me want to dig in deeper and get deeper into the culture here.
Let's talk about your upbringing. What were some of your early influences when it comes to your writing and your cartooning, your comic strips?
Of course, I have to give a lot of credit to Mad Magazine. Mad Magazine influenced an awful lot of what I did. The first time I saw a Mad Magazine was in a grocery store. And I was about 10 or 11, something around there. And I just noticed it, and I picked it up, and I opened it up, and I read it, and it's kind of like you open it up and the light's shining on you. What is going on? This is
like a holy grail
for
for
you.
you.
It comes up. I went home and I read it from front to back. And then I bounced around, and then I read it back to front. I read it all over again until the cover just fell off. And that was just the first one. And then the next one came out, and I did the same thing. Much of my influence comes from those guys from Mad Magazine, the way that they're able to use humor. And back in this is the 80s, they had no ads in there. William Gaines was a publisher, and he said he would not, well, first he said he was going to print it on the cheapest paper possible. That's why it was always this like really bad newsprint. He says, because it's cheap, right? You'd get it and it'd say $1.75 cheap. But he also said, I'm not going to have any ads in there, and I don't know the exact quote, but something like, I can't make fun of this particular beverage and then have an ad for it in my magazine. He says, we have to be open. Everybody's going to get scrutinized by Mad Magazine.
Equal opportunity offender.
Exactly. And I just love that. I love that. And they were very witty about it, and they're very quick and very fun.
Now, you had an opportunity to intern at Mad Magazine a couple years ago.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
that experience like?
That was a dream come true.
And how did it come to be?
That's a crazy story. I had always wanted to work at Mad Magazine. And I did not have, I thought, well, to work at Mad Magazine, you have to have an art degree, and you have to have a degree in humor. I didn't know what it was. You know, I thought
A degree
these
in
guys
humor.
have to have a degree in something to work at Mad Magazine. And it was always so far out. It was always like the biggest, weirdest dream that I could never, it was never going to happen to me in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Until one day, and this was back in 2010, 2009, late 2009, I just asked myself, I said, what would it take for me to work at Mad Magazine? What if it took me 7 years to actually get to that point, get this degree, whatever, and I fulfill this lifelong dream? And I said, well, first thing I do is I'll just go on Mad Magazine and see if they have any information. How do I work at Mad Magazine? Typed in Mad Magazine, and it pops up their webpage, and there's a button that says, want to work at Mad? And I said,
Oh, that was
yes.
easy.
Yeah, I go, well, yeah. And so I'm, boop, I hit that button, and it just says internships. And this is how you get an internship. You do this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatnot. And I looked around, I was like, are you kidding me? This is how you can do it? Granted, it wasn't a position as editor or anything like that, but it was for 6 weeks to work in the Mad Studios in New York City. So I said, I don't have anything to lose. I'll go ahead and try it. So I did it. I made a submission packet, sent it in, and I got a call not long later that says, Jason, we selected you, among 2 other interns to come to New York and be an intern at Mad Magazine. Pack your bags, you're going to come on over. It was great.
Tell me, what was that experience like? Coming from Las Cruces and going into the big city of New York City, into the studios. This is something that you grew up reading, and there you are right smack dab in the middle of it.
Yes. In fact, the weird thing is I thought I would be a lot more intimidated than I was, yet every one of these guys was just great. They're as charming and as fun and as smart as you would think they would be, which is crazy. I'm not saying that I expected them to be less. However, I didn't expect them to be as real as they are, but they are, and very open. And we would have these meetings in the morning, and there are no bad ideas. They wouldn't use all the ideas. Of course, there's bad ideas, but you wouldn't use all the ideas. But it was just say anything that comes to mind, right? And it was freedom to just have fun, be goofy, say this stuff, whatever. And sometimes you would say the most outrageous things, thinking that they're just going to say, well, Jason, that's just crazy. But then someone would say, what if we were to do this? Or we took that and did that. And the other person would say, what if we did this? And another writer would say, if we did this, da, 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 da. And before long, you have this piece, and they're like, yeah, that's it, let's work on it. And so it was like being inside the mind of a madman, but in a great way, literally inside the mind of a madman, because that's what I was, and or an idiot. They call the usual gang of idiots. So I proudly say that I was an idiot. So yeah, in one way it was weird. It was almost intimidating. New York City, Warner Brothers Studios, huge high-rise. In another way, it just felt like home.
So you found yourself a home. What did you do after Mad Magazine? What did you gain from it?
I gained a looseness to what I do. I also gained a confidence in what I do. If Mad was willing to give me a shot, and when I was sitting sometimes with the other writers and they were trying to come up with an idea, or they were trying to get through a problem, and I came up with an idea and they grasped that idea and they said, that's good. That opened me up to say that, yes, I am. I can come up with good stuff. This work is not for nothing. I'm sitting here with people who are making a national magazine, an iconic magazine, and they're listening to me and they're running with some of my ideas. It says, that's a confidence booster.
You are a wordsmith. I've seen you put together essays, seen you put together books. What inspires you? Where do you get these creative ideas from?
I get a lot of them from the people the writers that inspire me. I get it from reading the different types of books. Of course, be it humorous, be it maybe it's philosophy, or I listen to people who talk about philosophy. I love listening to people with their poetry, people who use puns, things of that nature. Basically, when it comes to inspiration, I get inspiration from everything. I like to, it's kind of like a Newman machine. I don't know if you're familiar with a Newman machine. I think that's what it's called. It's named after this guy who's a game theorist. And he says a way to destroy Earth, and I'm not trying to destroy Earth, but the way to destroy Earth is with what's called a Newman machine. And it goes around and it does two things. It eats carbon and it replicates itself, right? So it just kind of like eats Earth, and then it just replicates what it is. And I see myself as kind of a Newman machine with ideas, and not destruction, but actually duplicating or replicating or expanding on ideas and beautiful words and things that I've seen. Just go and try to eat it, process it, and put other stuff out into the world.
Now, you are self-published.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose this method over traditional publishing?
For one, there's no guards at the door, right? Amazon makes it very easy to do self-publishing. Secondly, I have to give credit to some guys at a website called Sterling & Stone. I think it's sterlingandstone.net if I'm correct. They wrote a book called Write, Publish, Repeat, which helped open my eyes to the benefits of self-publishing. The publishing world is a little bit crazy right now, and I can't get too into it. I don't know everything about it, of course, but I will say that from an economic standpoint, right now, I feel like I'm better off getting my books out there. I can get as many books if I want. I can put short stories out there, and then go out and market it, get in front of people, do shows. I love doing shows. I love sitting and talking to people and hearing their stories and just connecting with people. And to wait for my book for 2 years, 3 years to go through the whole publishing process so that I can go out there and meet people and put my work out there, I didn't want to do that. I want to just take the reins and just do it myself. And quite frankly, I've learned a lot.
Let's talk about you as a person. What do you do for fun? I mean, I constantly see you at the coffee shop, and you're writing, you're drawing. What do you do on your off time?
I write more. That's a funny thing. I
Write, repeat.
Yeah, write and repeat, write and repeat. I love creating. I love creating, and I have times in which I create all specific things. I'll work for 25 minutes and I'll take a 10-minute break, 25 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And I'll take entire days off sometimes. Like, I'm not supposed to write. However, sometimes I look around and nobody's looking. I can open up and I'll just like get to work and start writing, because I love the writing process. I love the creating process. I love making books and sharing things. It's what I love to do.
What's the secret to overcoming a mind blank? Do you ever have times where you just have a mind block?
There are times when I have a problem. It's almost like a math problem that I can't quite figure out. Usually I have a hard time with the starting of something. I know what I want to say, but starting it, I say, well, what's the best way to start this? So my advice to anybody would be media res, right? I believe that's the term, is they say jump in the middle. What do you really want to say? Just say that thing. Even if it's just a sentence, say that one thing. For instance, a guy finds a dog, right? And we get hung up on, it was a beautiful summer day or something like that. No, it was a rainy winter day. No, it wasn't. Start with a guy finds a dog. Work your way backwards from there. Where was the dog? How did he find the dog? And such and such, and fill in all the gaps.
Who are your favorite writers right now?
My favorite writer right now is Lee Child. He writes the Jack Reacher series, and I love the Jack Reacher series. It's just flat out fun, right? It's fast. It's everything I'm not. This guy's like this big, former military police guy, and he knows how to punch people and kick them and everything like that. And he's like, I'm gonna get the answers and everything. And that's not me, but I get to live vicariously through Jack Reacher. So I love Lee Child. I got to give a lot of credit to him.
Okay, so you're a writer, you're a humorist, you are an illustrator, graphic designer, singer-songwriter. What is it that people don't know about you?
Well, one thing that people don't know about me is that I am a Christian apologist. I read a lot of the Bible, and I love expounding on the stories therein. I love expounding on the context, maybe the language, all these things. Why was this written? Why was how do we apply it to our lives? And not in a religious-y sort of way, in an actual, real, real life sort of way, and know that a lot of these people went through a lot of the same things. Now, they didn't have Twitter, they didn't have Facebook or whatnot, but they had hurt feelings, right? They had friends that cut them off. They had people that challenged them, and then they had things that they wanted to do. So that's something that people don't know about me, and I've been accepted to Denver Seminary, which I should start in the fall if everything works well, for apologetics and ethics.
Where can people find you?
They can find me online at my website. It's jason-salas.com. That's JASON-SALAS.com. If they look up the Sugar Skull Ghost Thief on Amazon, boom, it's going to be right there. If you're in the Las Cruces area, you can find me at any coffee shop. I should be there talking to friends, talking to colleagues, talking to other people. It's just fun.
Jason Salas has been our guest. He is the author of The Sugar Skull Ghost Thief. Jason, congratulations on your book.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Fronteras at Changing America. I'm Edmundo Resendez.